Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today's video was previously shared on the Altenew YouTube channel, but I thought you would enjoy seeing it here as well. Today I am sharing two cards that both feature the Blooming Floral Swag press plate, and I wanted to show you how to take a smaller element like this and use it in a big way on a couple of cards. Now I am going to be doing some hot foiling with this press plate, and I end up using the champagne foil from Altenew, and I'm also going to show you how wonderful the new Crafty Necessities cardstocks are for foiling because they do have a smooth surface. So to start this first card out, I am placing my Blooming Floral Swag press plate onto my Glimmer Hot foil machine and allowing that platform to heat up. Now, once the platform reaches its temperature, I'm going to press the timer button, and once the timer has run through its cycle, I'm going to remove the platform from the base and take it over to my die cut machine. I'm going to add my champagne foil with the pretty side facing the pretty side of the press plate. And I added the Winter Lake cardstock on top of that along with my shims, and then I'll run that through my die cutting machine. Now keep in mind, you can also use press plates to do a letterpress effect with your Better Press system. So if foiling's not your thing, you can still create similar cards to this. Now you can see when I peel and reveal, I have this gorgeous floral design. It's not a huge design, and that's why I wanted to use it and feature it in a couple of different ways today. The first way I'm going to use this beautiful foiled image is as a focal pattern on a die cut. I've grabbed my World in Bloom die set, and I have this circle die from that set. This actually creates the base of the globe, and I have positioned the die right where I want it, kind of cropping out the portion that I want. And I also have a couple of the other dies from that same World in Bloom die set that I'm die cutting from some brushed gold cardstock. So you can see this will actually be the base of my globe, and you can absolutely decorate this globe in so many different ways. If you have a stamp set that's similar, you can try stamping that or heat embossing it in gold onto your cardstock as well to kind of dress up this globe in a different way. I'm also going to die cut the base of the globe from the Morning Frost cardstock. I love this really beautiful soft gray color, and I'm going to be using it in both of my cards today. Now you can see that I have all of my elements die cut and they're ready to put together. I also die cut the latitude and longitude die there, for lack of a better word. I don't know what to call it, but I couldn't decide if I wanted to use that or not. I'm just kind of piecing things together, and I'm going to place this over the top of that globe. I really felt like in the end it was too much, so I didn't end up using this piece, but I can definitely use it on a different card project. Now, one thing I wanted to point out is that I'm using the new Crafty Necessities cardstock from Altenew in this Winter Lake color. And this is a smooth cardstock that comes in packs of 10 of 8.5 by 11 sheets that coordinate with existing Altenew ink colors. And the thing that is very unique about this cardstock is it is a colored cardstock, but it foils really well. And that's because it has that smooth finish on the cardstock. That's really important when you're doing foiling. You want to make sure that you are using a smooth cardstock, and I found that this foils absolutely beautifully. Now it's time to assemble my globe, and I have die cut a couple of these pieces from some additional white cardstock layers to kind of assemble together, add some depth and dimension to this globe. And I'm starting out with this kind of frame piece of that globe. I'm not sure what this piece would be called, but I'm stacking up a couple of plain white die cuts behind it. I'm using liquid glue so I can kind of push and move these pieces into place to where they line up wonderfully. And then once I have that all adhered together, I will adhere it onto the base piece of my globe. I'm going to repeat that process with the actual globe itself. So I'm adding 2 additional white cardstock layers behind that foiled piece that I created earlier. Now, by adding this pattern onto the globe, which is the focal point, it's not only going to give this small pattern some dimension, but it's really going to bring it into focus on the card because it is the main focal point of the main focal point. So it doesn't have to be a big element to really take center stage. And by adding this little bit of dimension behind it, having that bold color, I'm really drawing the eye into the smaller pattern. And I'm going to show you how to bring even more attention to that here in just a moment. But for now, I'm going to grab some of these beautiful new cardstocks from Altenew, and I am trimming these into 3/8 of an inch strips. So just below a 1/4 inch. I'm kind of weird about my strips. I like them in 1/8 or 1/16 inch increments because I feel like it just feels more balanced overall. Now I also trimmed some of that brushed gold cardstock into a cardstock strip, and I trimmed that one at 1/8 of an inch. So it's slightly narrower than the other cardstock strips that I'm using. But here is another way to kind of bring the focus into that pattern that we've created. I am doing just a little bit of ink blending on the outer edge of this globe. So it's bringing in some drama, it's bringing in some contrast, and I'm using ink colors that coordinate with the cardstock. So you can see I used the Winter Lake first. That is actually the same ink color as the cardstock that I used. And to deepen that up in certain areas, I've grabbed one shade darker, which is the Arctic Mountain, and blended that kind of where that foiling is. So it's actually deeper and darker underneath that foiled floral image. By adding that little bit of shading, especially that darkness underneath the foiled image, it really brings the eye into the center of that globe and helps to make that small element the real true focal point of this card. So now I'm taking my strips that I created earlier and I am adhering them to a white card front. This measures 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And you can see I'm just placing these strips in place using some liquid glue. I like to add the first strip to my card front first, get that in place, and then use that kind of as a bumper to place all of the other cardstock strips. So I'm just making sure that each of these strips butts up against the previous strip that I've placed. Now, once I have all of those in place, I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess using some scissors. I always like to have a good pair of long blade scissors on hand for things like this. And then I'm going to take this entire card front and place it in the Traveler's Atlas 3D embossing folder and run this through my die cut machine. This is going to give that map texture on my card front. I think it ties into this globe so wonderfully. I love the way it looks. And an embossing folder is really a great way to add some texture and dimension to a card panel without creating extra bulk. So I've set up my die cut machine in the way that it recommends for a 3D embossing folder. I've run that through my die cut machine and you can see all of that wonderful map texture on my card front. So now that I have all of my elements, I went ahead and foiled one of the sentiments from the Blooming Floral Swag press plate set using that same champagne foil. I've also die cut some vellum leaves, and this die cut comes from the World in Bloom die set. So I haven't brought in another die set. I'm just using what I already have out. And I am adhering some of those vellum leaves to the back side of my sentiment, which has a little bit of foam tape on it. And then I will take that sentiment and adhere it to my globe. I'm also going to place the globe onto this card front using some foam adhesive. So again, I'm just creating more dimension, but keep in mind, if you don't like a ton of dimension on your card, you can skip any of those elements of foam dimension that you want and create a more flat, mailer-friendly card. So I'm just positioning that onto my card front, making sure I'm totally happy with it before I adhere it down. And that piece of cardstock that we foiled earlier, that's not going to go to waste. I'm actually going to use that as a matte layer for this card front that I've created. So I'm placing the card front onto that matte layer using some foam adhesive. And then I'll take this entire thing and place it onto a top folding A2 white card using tape runner adhesive. I know you didn't expect that. So that finishes off card number 1. You can see how that beautiful floral foiled element takes center stage. Even though it's not a huge press plate in itself, we really can do things to make it kind of come into focus on our card. Now, card number 2 is a very simple card. We're going to be using some more of the Crafty Necessities cardstock from Altenew. I'm using the colors Rouge, Morning Frost, Winter Lake, Lagoon, and Volcano Lake. That was kind of a little test for me, but I'm glad I passed. So I'm arranging these into the order that I want, and I'm going to adhere them to this panel of white cardstock that I've trimmed down. It measures 3 inches by 4¼ inches, and you can see I'm covering the entire thing with tape runner adhesive. Then I'm going to bring in my Essential scoring board from Altenew, and I'm going to butt this strip up into the corner of that scoreboard. And I already have my panel of white cardstock up in the corner of that scoreboard, and that's going to help me align all of these strips perfectly straight on this panel of cardstock that I'm creating. So in order, I am going Rouge, Morning Frost, Winter Lake, Lagoon, and Volcano Lake. And once I have all of those strips in place onto this card panel, I will once again take this and trim off the excess. This time I used a paper trimmer to do it, but if you wanted to use a long blade pair of scissors, you could absolutely do that. Now this panel is beautiful on its own because it has all of those beautiful colored cardstocks on it, and it can be really used in so many ways. One of my favorite ways to use a panel like this is to heat emboss a floral image onto some vellum using white embossing powder and just place it over the top. It allows those colors to show through the vellum and also just create a really lacy, ethereal feel. But today, to dress up this panel, we're going to use that Blooming Floral Swag press plate once again and some champagne foil. Now, I think it's a good idea when you're using something like this to allow the edge of it to kind of run off the paper, kind of that bleed effect that you get. And so I am aligning my champagne foil and my press plate where that left edge is kind of hanging over the edge. You can see me folding down the foil to make sure I have everything where I want it. And you'll notice that I'm going to take this entire stack of the cardstock, the foil, and the press plate and lay it with the back side of the press plate on my hot foil machine, and then I'm going to set the timer. Now, once this timer's done, I'm again going to remove the platform from the base, run that through my die cut machine. But I kind of already was clued into the fact that I had a lot of thickness on this panel, and I was kind of wondering if I was going to get some overfoiling, and look at there, I did. In the corners where the foil touched the cardstock, because there's a couple layers of cardstock going on here, I got a little bit of overfoiling, but it wasn't really pressed into the cardstock. So I was able to take my stamp conditioning eraser, and I know that this is not what it's designed for, but it works beautifully for removing this excess foil without tearing up the cardstock. So I was able to just run that stamp conditioning eraser over those areas where a little bit of that foil transferred, and then I had a beautiful panel ready to go. Now, a couple videos ago, I actually created a bunch of sentiments using the hot foil and these versatile greetings, hot foil plates, and coordinating dies. And so I pulled out one of those greetings that I had already created, and I die cut the outline a couple more times from the Rouge cardstock and the Morning Frost cardstock. And I'm going to layer those up with a little bit of an offset so that I have a little bit of color behind that sentiment. I'm using tape runner adhesive to do this, but you could use liquid glue as well. I'm just trying to make it quick and easy. Then I'm going to take this sentiment and place it onto that panel that I created using some foam adhesive. Now, I wanted to use that Morning Frost cardstock again, but I wanted this to have kind of a little bit of a frame or a border so that it didn't get lost on this Morning Frost cardstock. So I layered it up with a panel of white cardstock that measures 4½ inches by 3¼ inches. And then I popped that entire thing onto an A2 side folding card base made from some Morning Frost cardstock. And you can see that beautiful, small, petite floral element really does take center stage on both of these cards. This Blooming Floral Swag is one of those kind of small but mighty products that you can have in your stash. I love the way that it takes center stage on both of these cards, and I love the slight curve to it, which allows me to kind of frame in that sentiment or use it on this globe piece and have it kind of just nestle in perfectly. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube, so if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to the coordinating blog post. I'll have that linked in the YouTube description as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I want to say thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you enjoyed these projects. If you did, be sure to like this video and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here so you don't miss any of the fabulous paper crafting and card making video tutorials. Be sure to let me know in the comments below which of these 2 card projects is your favorite. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. To subscribe to my channel, go ahead and click the button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.